Bill, deuxième lecture de ce projet de loi.
When shall the bill be read second time? The next meeting of the House. The time for government orders having expired, we'll proceed with statements by members. Déclaration de député.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Drivers in my riding of Sudbury are fed up with the unfair price of gas in our community. Compared to neighbouring cities, Sudbury often pays 10 to 20 cents more per litre. To fill up your tank, this can mean an extra $10 or $15, which adds up quickly in a northern community where most people driving to work isn't a choice, it's the only option, Mr. Speaker. In response to the growing unrest, since June, more than 9,000 frustrated people have contacted the Competition Bureau demanding an investigation into the price of gas in Sudbury. Yet under the rules put in place by this Conservative government, even such an overwhelming volume of complaints don't warrant an investigation. If 9,000 complaints can't force an end to unfair gas prices in Sudbury, then what can, Mr. Speaker? When will the Conservatives finally support the NDP's proposal to create an oil and gas ombudsman with the mandate to directly respond to the concerns of Canadians? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vegreville Wainwright.
Mr. Speaker, in light of the 85th anniversary of the Persons case, I acknowledge the many Canadians who are working to ensure that all human beings are recognized in law. Mr. Speaker, Canada truly is amongst the world's elite when it comes to valuing and protecting human rights, except we are one of only 3 countries in the world with no legal protection for children before birth. Sadly, this includes unborn babies who are eliminated, have their precious lives ended just because they are girls, Mr. Speaker. Britain knows it's wrong. Their parliament declared sex selection abortions illegal by 181 to 1 vote. Mr. Speaker, Canada can fix this too. Let's start by having this parliament condemn gender selection abortion. And what better day to recognize this than on Persons Day, Mr. Speaker? As Dr. Seuss once said, a person's a person, no matter how small.
The Honourable Member for Random Burn, St. George's.
I rise today to recognize Mrs. Marguerite Gillum, originally from Agathuna, but now residing in Stephenville and Random Buren, St. George's. On November the 11th, this remarkable woman will celebrate her 100th birthday.
Hear, hear.
Mrs. Gillum demonstrated an aptitude for and love of music at a very young age. She learned to play piano at age 7 and later the accordion. She performed with a local band, provided music during silent movies at the local theatre, and was the organist at her church for 35 years. Mrs. Gillum enjoyed traveling, and among her favorite memories are the time she spent swimming in the Bahamas. She spent several years as a teacher and has been an active member of her community, including knitting and crocheting items, which she often donated to local charities. When a storm destroyed the Anglican Church in her community in 1948, she was instrumental in securing funding and free labor to build a new church. Mrs. Gillum and her husband Israel raised 3 children. She has 11 grandchildren, 22 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. I ask all members of the House to join me in wishing Mrs. Gillum a very happy 100th birthday.
The Honourable Member for Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to pay tribute to Marlene Pannebecker from my hometown of Lacombe, Alberta, who was recently named 2014 Walmart Mom of the Year Community Champion, and rightly so. Marlene is an example of selflessness in action. On any given day, you can find Marlene raising donations, doing humanitarian work abroad, or handing out hot chocolate and toiletries to people staying at local shelters. Marlene and her husband, Denny, have also adopted 4 orphan children from Haiti. Having lost her own son in a tragic accident last January, Marlene put aside her own grief to visit the other people involved in that accident and take care of them while they were recovering. Once they were released, she also helped arrange daily meals for the men who spent the last moments with her son. Marlene is the definition of amazing, generous, selfless, and courageous, and I can think of no one more deserving of the title Mom of the Year. Congratulations, Marlene. You're an inspiration to all of us.
The Honourable Member for Laval. Thank you. I had the honor on November 1st of participating in the inauguration of the War Memorial built in honor of Portuguese veterans at Pedro de Silva Park in Laval. This reminds us that Canadians from a variety of backgrounds, as mentioned in yesterday's statement by my colleague from Sackville Eastern Shore, fought shoulder to shoulder, reflective of the Canadian society that we love and promote, diverse and inclusive. Mr. Speaker, I would like to pay homage to Lieutenant Colonel Richard Jourdain, outgoing commander of the Royal 22nd Regiment, for his 35 years of service. I would also like to highlight the citizen involvement of Shamadi Branch 251 of the Royal Canadian Legion, Master of Ceremonies for next Sunday's Remembrance Day ceremonies in Laval for 2014, lest we forget.
The Honourable Member for Calgary South Northeast.
Well, Mr. Speaker, 147 years ago on November 6, 1867, was the first day of the first session of the first Parliament of Canada. As we mark this anniversary, we are reminded of the responsibility we carry as member of the House to leave Canada a better place than we found it. Also today, millions of Sikhs around the world are celebrating the 546th birthday of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first Guru. It is a very special day to celebrate his teachings and share his message of peace and respect for all faiths. As he said, I quote, "Before becoming a Muslim, a Sikh, a Hindu or a Christian, let's become a human first." End quote. On behalf of myself and the entire Shori family, I extend my best wishes to all those marking this auspicious day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today for the fourth consecutive year, I'm wearing purple along with members from both sides of the House in support of the London Abused Women's Centre's Shine the Light on Women Abuse campaign. The goal of this campaign is to raise awareness around the issue of women abuse and its effect on society. Organizations, schools, neighbourhoods, sports teams and places of worship across London will be asked to participate by wearing purple. I am proud that this London campaign has grown to more than 16 cities and 4 counties across Ontario. Since 2007, our government has funded more than $70 million in projects to end violence against women and girls through the Women's Program at Status of Women Canada. Together, we take a stand against violence against women and girls, which has no place in this country or any other country, and it will not be tolerated. I'd like to congratulate the London Abused Women's Centre, especially Executive Director Megan Walker, for shining the light on women abuse. Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The 2014 Shine the Light on Women Abuse campaign kicked off in London, Ontario on November the 1st. And of course, the goal of this month-long campaign is to raise awareness of abuse suffered by women in our communities by illuminating towns and cities and even regions in purple light. As I'm sure you know, Mr. Speaker, purple is the color of courage, survival, and honor. Women who have been harassed or who are in abusive relationships often feel trapped. Their homes, their workplaces, and their communities are no longer safe places. Women need to know that any shame or blame that they may feel does not belong to them, but to their abusers. I invite all Canadians to show their support in the fight to end violence against women by wearing purple throughout the month of November. Thank you, Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Brampton Springdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today marks the 545th anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Millions of Sikhs around the world are celebrating the birth of the founder of the Sikh religion, Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji. His message of peace and respect for all faiths continue to ring true to this day. As the Prime Minister said today in a statement, the value of Sikhism, including compassion, justice, and respect, are also Canadian values. Canada is a proud home to one of the largest and most dynamic Sikh population outside of India. Whether it is in our economic or cultural sectors, Sikhs in Canada have worked tirelessly to help build and define our great nation. I would like to wish Sikhs around the world a very happy and prosperous Gurpurb. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The 2014 statements published last Friday told us that increases to food banks have increased dramatically. This is an alarming trend, and with the cold weather almost upon us, a lot of families are going to be hungry. So I hope that people will participate in Christmas hamper programs in every region. You can also contribute to the volunteer center of Masquinongé in Louisville. For the residents of Berthierville, there is a fundraising supper being organized on the 24th of November for the Christmas hampers. And we should also not forget other activities in Mauricie. I congratulate all the people organizing all of these initiatives to allow families to have a happy time during the holidays. It's important to be generous. Let's work together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, thanks to our historic family tax cut, all families with children will be better off. That includes working parents, stay-at-home parents, single parents, one-earner families, two-earner families. Indeed, all families with children will have more money in their pockets.
Great policy.
The average benefit is more than $1,100, and the vast majority of the benefits will go to middle and lower income families.
That's just great news.
But the Liberal leader will take these benefits away from families.
Shame.
Unlike him, we know Canadian families work hard and deserve a break.
Sure do.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud that our government is giving money back to each and every family with children in Canada.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Etobicoke North.
Mr. Speaker, I recognize Guru Nanak Dev Ji's birth, which is celebrated worldwide and is an ideal time to share his message of peace and respect for all faiths. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is the founder of Sikhism and the first of the Sikh gurus. He traveled widely, teaching people the message of one God, human rights, and justice. His life and teachings are of profound significance to all. In fact, his message of community, equality, love, and service provides inspiration for all humanity. My favorite Guru Nanak Dev Ji story is that when his father gave him money to find a job and seek his fortune, he instead took the money and fed those in need. Canada is proud to be home to one of the largest Sikh communities outside India. We think of the community as it comes together in prayer and looks forward to the coming year.
Well done. The Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, as Canadians, we can be proud we are a welcoming nation and home to many newcomers who seek safety, security, and protection. Although Canada is a generous and tolerant country, our openness does not extend to barbaric cultural practices that seek to harm women and girls. Mr. Speaker, studies show that there are hundreds of cases of forced marriage in Ontario alone, and there have been 21 Canadian criminal cases of honor-based violence in the past decade. Mr. Speaker, one case is too much. Yesterday, our government tabled legislation in the Senate that will protect newcomer women and girls from violence, including early and forced marriages, spousal abuse, violence in the name of so-called honor, and other gender-based violence. Canada will not tolerate practices such as polygamy, early and forced marriages, or honor killings. We will continue to ensure that Canada's women and girls have the tools they need to succeed and flourish in this great nation of ours.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my fellow MPs for last night's vote, giving all-party support to my bill making Remembrance Day a national holiday. As a new MP, I was skeptical about what could be accomplished in Ottawa, but the importance of all-party cooperation strengthens my faith in our democracy. It makes me even prouder to represent the people of Scarborough. From my great-grandfather, Harold Riley, who served in both World Wars, to family members who have done tours in Afghanistan, Remembrance Day has shaped our family history and always held great personal meaning. Under my bill, C-597, November 11th will be given the same legal status as Victoria Day and Canada Day, the two legal holidays listed in the Holidays Act. The recognition of this day in law is something that all members of this House can be proud of. Let's all continue to work for the benefit of veterans and their families, lest we forget.
The honourable member for Desmete, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Conservative government is giving more money to parents, but the Liberals and the NDP want to give more money to the bureaucrats. We're cutting taxes, but the Liberal leader wants to raise taxes. Our plan helps 100% of families with kids, but the NDP plan helps only 10% of the families. The average benefit of our family tax cut is over $1,100, and every parent will now receive up to $1,920 per child. Mr. Speaker, the moms and dads should have the money because they know what's best for their children. They don't need the Liberal leader having a paternalistic approach to tell them how to spend their own money.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, this week, Scotiabank laid off 1,500 workers despite record profits, and today another company announced the layoff of 4,000 employees. That's not counting Ford, that decided to build a plant in Mexico rather than Ontario. Hundreds of jobs were thus lost. Do the Conservatives understand that their policies are directly linked to these failures?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been focusing on job creation, economic growth, and long-term prosperity. We have delivered that over 1.1 million net new jobs since the economic downturn. We understand that that is the key, along with opening new markets to creating jobs in the future, and our government will continue on that track.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, we've long known that Conservatives are more talk than action when it comes down to tackling tax evasion, but it turns out they're actually part of the problem. An international investigation has revealed that a Canadian Crown corporation used a phony Luxembourg shell company to avoid paying foreign taxes. So how are Canadians supposed to trust the Conservatives to crack down on aggressive tax avoidance when they're busy setting up shell companies of their own?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member well knows, of course, this is an arm's length administration from the federal government. Its business and affairs are managed at a day-to-day level by a board of directors. That's how it works, Mr. Speaker. And we, of course, on this side of the House, expect that all investments should be done in compliance with laws, rules, and regulations in a transparent manner and to the greater benefit of the clients.
The honourable member for Halifax.
It almost seems like the minister is acting like he's arm's length from his own job. He has to admit that cuts to government departments are responsible for this. Reports tabled in Parliament yesterday revealed that the CRA is understaffed by 642 full-time positions compared to planned levels. And so perhaps it's a little surprise that they dramatically missed their target for full-scale investigations for prosecution. So when will the minister admit that his cuts are ruining our ability to crack down on tax evaders?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, we have a strong record of getting tough on tax cheats. And in fact, the CRA has audited over 8,000 international tax cases, identifying over $5.6 billion in additional taxes that are being collected, Mr. Speaker. We are being aggressive. We are making sure that Canada has one of the most extensive tax treaty networks in the world, with 92 tax treaties and 21 tax information exchange agreements in force.
The honourable member for Hull-Aylmer. The Minister of Revenue keeps her arms crossed while the Crown Corporation in charge of administering the pension fund of public servants uses shell companies to avoid taxes. How can the minister explain to the public servants in her own department who fight tax evasion day after day, have their own pension money invested in a notorious tax haven?
Monsieur le Président, quand j'ai...
Mr. Speaker, as I already said, this Crown Corporation is independent. This is an independent organization. These things happened after 2000. They are not part of the public administration of the federal government. Its affairs are managed by a board of directors. We expect that these investments respect the law, the regulations, and are done in a transparent manner while maintaining the spirit of protecting the interests of the clients.
Sérieuses allégations ont fait surface concernant la conduite de certains membres de cette Chambre. En février dernier, le Comité de la condition féminine avait produit une série de...
Alors, il y a un problème avec la traduction.
There's a problem with interpretation. The honourable member for Hull-Aylmer can start over. Mr. Speaker, yesterday serious allegations surfaced concerning the conduct of certain members of Parliament. Last February, the Standing Committee on the Status of Women had produced a series of recommendations regarding harassment in the workplace, including within the House of Commons. Will the chair of the committee tell us whether and when the committee will meet to discuss the government's response concerning this report? The Honourable Chair. I thank my colleague for her question. I know that during her public service career, she tried to eradicate harassment. Harassment is unacceptable, regardless of the workplace. All deserve to work in a safe workplace that respects each individual. That doesn't seem to be the case on the Hill, quite clearly. Let's work together to face this situation and make harassment a thing of the past.
The Honourable Member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, the latest figures on economic growth show the Canadian economy actually shrank in August. GDP is down. The government has no growth agenda. Its sole reliance on the oil sector is wobbly. The dollar is down. The Governor of the Bank of Canada is telling 200,000 young people to work for nothing while they live in their parents' basement. So how can the government justify a $2 billion income-splitting giveaway that helps only 15% of households, disproportionately the wealthy, and discourages economic growth?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, while the OECD has downgraded global growth, it has said that Canada's growth rate will be superior to that of most G7 countries. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we have created 20% more jobs than Germany, more than most countries in the G7. Just yesterday, Standard & Poor's reconfirmed our top AAA rating, and we're going to have a surplus next year.
The Honourable Member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, over 100 other countries in the world will grow faster than Canada next year. The government's income-splitting scheme is riddled with discrepancies. That's why they won't give straight answers. A couple struggling to raise a family on a single $45,000 income will get just $150 from income splitting. That's the grand total of 40 cents a day. But if your salary is $160,000, like an MP, for example, you'll get $2,000. That's what Jim Flaherty warned against, and it has not been corrected. It's expensive, unfair, and anti-growth. Why?
The Honourable Minister of State for Social Development.
Well, Mr. Speaker, under what our Prime Minister announced last week, every single Canadian family with children under 18 will benefit from this. Now, Mr. Speaker, here's the difference between Conservatives and Liberals. Liberals think that if you put more money in parents' pockets, they will spend it on beer and popcorn. We disagree, Mr. Speaker. We believe that helping families make their lives more affordable is good for the economy, it's good for the country, it's good for everyone.
Honourable for Beauséjour. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' income splitting plan produces nothing for parents with similar incomes. In the Atlantic, a parent who works in tourism and the other one in fishery will get no income splitting. In Quebec, if one parent's in the arts and the other one in the nonprofit sector, no income splitting there either. In Ontario, two parents who teach, no income splitting. Why adopt a measure that's so expensive and that does not benefit any of these people? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the income splitting, the family tax cut that we've introduced that we're going to be giving to families will impact close to half of the families, 1.7 million families in Canada. Mr. Speaker, it also will help families who are moderately, two-thirds of those families are moderate to low income. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, as we're so pleased to have told families, we're increasing the universal child care benefit as well as expanding it. Mr. Speaker, Canadian families count on this government, count on Conservatives to put more money in their pocket. Mr. Speaker, will follow through on our commitment to Canadian families.
Member for Brassard-la-Prairie. Mr. Speaker, once again this morning we find it that a train is derailed. This time it's near Sept-Îles. This event, like many others, reminds us of the government's major responsibility for rail safety. The report on the performance of the Transport Department tells us that 700 jobs in transport safety have not been filled. 700. How can the minister explain that they will ensure the safety of Canadians when they're cutting the number of inspectors? Mr. Speaker, Transport Canada is looking at the situation. We thank the first responders for their quick action. We are noting the fact that a train has derailed following what seems to be a landslide. However, we're waiting for the determination of the competent authorities. The Honourable Member for Brassard-la-Prairie.
There is something troubling happening regarding transport safety under this government's watch. Yesterday, we learned from the Departmental Performance Report of Transport Canada that there is a systematic understaffing for almost every category of transportation safety and security, with hundreds of unfilled positions. Transport Canada, by its own admission, is saying that they have 700 less employees for inspection and oversight. Why is the government cutting transportation safety and security employees?
Wow. Quite the contrary, Mr. Speaker. In fact, Transport Canada has been consistently hiring inspectors. The member knows that. That's all part of a $100 million investment in our rail safety framework, Mr. Speaker. In fact, in response to the final recommendations of the Transportation Safety Board just last week, he will note that additional auditors are also being hired, Mr. Speaker, and that's because we take the safety and security of Canadians and our rail system very seriously.
Honourable Member for Pierre-Fond-de-Lard. Mr. Speaker, the Minister has many things that are quite interesting to say about health care for refugee claimants. He said that providing health care for refugee claimants is not part of Canadian values. He disagrees with the court that forced him to restore the 2012 regime, and he wants to appeal. He thinks it's shameful to ask questions about refugees who cannot obtain health care. I'm wondering why the minister doesn't think refusing health care is shameful. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what remains shameful is the NDP statements according to which refugee claimants did not receive health care. That has never been the case, Mr. Speaker. It will never be the case under this government, and the New Democrats have to stop saying the opposite and misleading the Canadian public. Mr. Speaker, we are proud of the health care we provide to refugees. We are determined to protect the interests of taxpayers. That is why we continue with our appeal, and will continue to question why the NDP insist that health care be given to people who are about to be deported. The Honourable Member for Pierre-Fond-de-Lard. Mr. Speaker, the minister seems to want to determine who deserves to get health care that could save their lives. I think he doesn't understand the magnitude of the cruelty of this reform. Let's talk about people who don't deserve care, apparently. A teenager with PTSD who's attempted suicide several times, even though he may have interim federal health program coverage, he would be cut off from psychiatric medications that are essential. Does the minister think that kind of treatment is acceptable? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the real situation. Refugees, including children, continue to receive care, and they always have. After yesterday's announcement, we complied with the court decision. Children, pregnant women, newborns will continue to receive health care. What is scandalous, though, Mr. Speaker, even cruel, is the NDP's insistence on giving health care to those who are facing deportation following court decisions. Does the NDP have any respect for our court's decisions? Mr. Speaker, allow me to make something clear here. The NDP is talking about refugee claimants, not refugees. The minister said he disagreed with the court's decision. That means he thinks that the following situation would be acceptable. A young female refugee claimant who is a sex slave is pregnant. She cannot choose to terminate that pregnancy because she has no valid coverage. Does the minister think that letting this young woman down is acceptable? Does he really think that's a Canadian value? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, the victims of human trafficking in Canada never stopped receiving health care. And according to the policy of this government, they will never lose that right. What is scandalous, and the NDP must apologize about this, is that for 2 days running, they've insisted that refugees in Canada don't receive health care. Today, they've recognized that they're talking about refugee claimants. They have no credibility on this whole issue.
Delta.
The minister seems to think that that kind of treatment is fine. That's why he's appealing the ruling. If he wins, we'll see more cases like this one. A man requiring urgent eye surgery to prevent blindness is refused, and I mean refused, health coverage because he is said to be a, quote, illegal migrant expected to leave the country. 10 days later, he receives notification from Citizenship and Immigration Canada that he is eligible for permanent residency status. Does that minister think that treatment is okay?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite has just given another example of the system working. Permanent residence is what 260,000 people have received this year in this country, and there will be room for more next year. Mr. Speaker, what is scandalous is that the NDP spent half of this week insisting that health care was not going to refugees in this country. That has never been the case. That was misleading the Canadian public. Now they're talking about asylum claimants. They don't have any credibility on this issue.
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Standing up for basic Canadian values, Mr. Speaker, that is never a scandalous thing to do in this Parliament. Because of his reckless and humane policy, a refugee claimant, 32 weeks pregnant, went to 2 emergency rooms suffering from lower abdominal pain, and on both occasions she was told she would have to be responsible for covering the costs of her visits. She left on both occasions without being seen. Why does the minister think treatment like this of a young, pregnant, and likely frightened refugee is a Canadian value?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member knows very well that our healthcare system across this country does not turn pregnant women away, does not turn people away who are in an emergency situation, and shame on them for suggesting otherwise, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, we announced that we were implementing the decision of the court. We are giving additional health care to claimants who are children and pregnant women, Mr. Speaker. But we are also appealing this decision because, Mr. Speaker, Canadian values rest on many foundations. One of them is generosity, one of them is an open society, and another one, Mr. Speaker, is the rule of law. We will insist that those who've been ordered to leave this country by courts.
The honourable member for Davin.
On to another story, Mr. Speaker. Stories of abuse of unpaid interns continue to pile up in this country. In fact, unpaid interns in federally regulated industries have none of the protections paid employees have. Things like protection from sexual harassment in the workplace, protection from the right to refuse unsafe work. Now, my colleague has put forward a bill that would extend these and other protections to unpaid interns. Simple question for the government: will it support our Intern Protection Act?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for his question. I want to be very clear with respect to individuals that work in federally regulated workplaces. Part 2 and Part 3 of the Canada Labour Code cover them for harassment as well as for many other issues with regards to health and safety. If there is an individual that has a concern with respect to working in a federally regulated space, please report it to Labour Canada. We'll have an inspector look at it immediately and make sure it's rectified.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille. We know that that's not the case. Many companies do not comply with the Canada Labour Code and abuse unpaid labour. For people under federal jurisdiction, it's awful. They have no protection. I proposed a bill that would allow interns to have some basic protection against harassment, sexual harassment, and so forth. Will the minister support our bill on the protection of interns? Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has made a commitment to protect workers and keep them safe and productive.
Respect to employees who believe that their rights under the Canada Labour Code have been violated. Please bring that matter forward to the Canada Labour Program. We will deal with it immediately, as we have with all cases that have been brought forward. Inspectors to review those issues that have been brought forward to us by the Labour Program immediately so that they can be resolved.
The honourable member for Randon, Buren, St. George's.
Mr. Speaker, millions of two-parent families with young children have been cut out of the Conservatives' income-splitting plan and will get nothing. Single parents get nothing. Parents who are struggling to help their children through university get nothing. Meanwhile, people in the top 1% of earners, like the Prime Minister, will get $2,000 in their pockets.
Right.
Can the government explain to the millions of Canadians they've forgotten about why income splitting is fair to them?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Well, that member is completely wrong, and I understand why the Liberals don't want Canadians to know about the fantastic benefits that they will be receiving through our family tax cut as well as our universal child care benefit expansion. Mr. Speaker, a single parent with 2 children earning $30,000 will receive over $1,500 per year under our plan. A single parent making $50,000 with 2 kids will see almost $1,000 in relief and benefits. Mr. Speaker, close to 2 million families, half the families with children, will receive direct benefits. Again, the Liberals don't like that, Mr. Speaker, because they want to keep taxes high. They don't want money in the pockets of families.
The honourable member for Kings Head.
Speaker, the Conservatives are spending more than $500 million on the small business job credit without doing their homework. Yesterday, financial officials admitted that they hadn't done any internal analysis on how many jobs would be created. The PBO has done its analysis, and it's confirmed that only 800 jobs will be created at the cost of $700,000 per job. Why is the government spending $500 million of taxpayers' money without doing its homework?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as the opposition knows, the small jobs credit will create, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, over 25,000 person years. It will reduce the cost for for the employers of most Canadians. 780,000 companies will be benefited, over 90% of businesses. This is a good jobs and growth program for small business.
The honourable member for Kings Hands.
Speaker, experts like David Dodge, the IMF, and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce all agree that we need more public investment in infrastructure. Now you can add Governor Paulos to that list. This week he called infrastructure, quote, a key ingredient in our economic growth story. He said that with interest rates at, quote, a generational low, that the missing ingredient is government and the certainty that government can provide. Governor Paulos is right. Will the Conservatives listen to Governor Paulos and to David Dodge? And will they reverse their 90% cut in planned infrastructure spending this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the preamble to that question is entirely incorrect. This Conservative government is making record investments in infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, over $53 billion over the next decade, predictable, stable funding. That includes, Mr. Speaker, $2 billion dispersed through the gas tax fund alone. We are working very closely with provinces and with municipalities. We're getting the job done.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie.
Mr. Speaker, when SARS hit Toronto, Canada correctly opposed travel restrictions. Canada's Ebola visa ban goes against the very same regulations the Canadian government helped devise following the SARS crisis. The WHO Director General has said that no evidence exists to support the effectiveness of travel ban as a protective measure. So why is the Canadian government breaking the very rules it asked for?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the WHO and the member opposite are incorrect on this issue. There is no travel ban. Canada has been very clear for many months in discouraging travel by our own citizens, by our own nationals to Ebola-affected countries, and we are now being consistent, and it stands to reason for the vast majority of Canadians that we would now discourage those from those countries to travel to Canada in order to minimize risk to public health. That said, Mr. Speaker, travel for essential purposes, including economic purposes, from the 3 countries affected by Ebola will be permitted when public health can be protected.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie.
Effective and counterproductive policy. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, we're not alone in being concerned about the way Canada is managing the Ebola crisis. The Ebola Private Sector Mobilization Group wrote to the Prime Minister to remind him, and I quote, that closing the borders will not stop the spread of Ebola virus. In addition to exacerbating the existing crisis and its impact on the private sector and the economy of the 3 countries affected. Why is the minister so intent on closing the borders and hindering these efforts to fight Ebola? The Honourable Minister.
Absolutely clear from the beginning that we will take precautionary measures to ensure that public health in this country is protected. We have been at the forefront of the international effort to respond to the Ebola outbreak, but we are also being prudent in advising our nationals not to travel to Ebola-affected countries and in advising nationals, discouraging nationals from those countries from coming here to Canada. That said, essential travel will continue. Travel with an economic justification will continue, Mr. Speaker, and it is continuing.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Pierre Boucher. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Heritage tried unsuccessfully to defend her appointments, partisan appointments to the board of CBC. She talked about Pierre Gingras. Well, let's talk about Mr. Gingras. He has worked closely alongside their leader, Claude Carignan, member of the ADQ, and in 2013 he faced allegations at the Charbonneau Commission. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know when the report was received and what the conclusion of that was. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, here we have once again the NDP attacking Canadians who've contributed greatly to our country. As I said yesterday, when we're talking about CBC Radio-Canada, it is a Crown corporation that works independently of government. They will continue to do so, and the NDP
must take into consideration the fact that people who devote their time to our country should not be attacked in this Parliament. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Pierre Boucher. What a comment. Finally, the Minister of Infrastructure saw the light. And one thing for sure is that the Maurice Richard family went through a difficult situation and they could have avoided it. But the minister's refusing to put an end to the debate. There is no debate. We're not building a new bridge, so why a new name? So instead of letting himself be distracted by this, why doesn't he focus on his real responsibilities? Greater transparency for the tender process and avoiding the toll bridge and sitting down to talk with the government and the CMM. The Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Infrastructure for Economic Development of the Regions of Quebec confirmed this morning that the new bridge will not be called Maurice Richard. A new bridge will be built. That's a good news. 30,000 jobs will be created in the Greater Montreal area. And this is excellent news for the people who live there.
For Edmonton, Leduc.
Mr. Speaker, while the opposition consistently calls for higher taxes and more spending, our Conservative government has a low tax plan for jobs and growth. Since we were elected, we have cut taxes more than 180 times so that the overall federal tax burden is at its lowest level in half a century. Quite an achievement, Mr. Speaker. All this while balancing the books. Can the Minister of Finance inform this House when Canadians can expect the fall economic and fiscal update?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Edmonton-Leduc for the question. I'm very pleased to tell Canadians that I will be presenting our economic and fiscal update on November the 12th. While the global economy remains fragile, our government is focused on creating jobs and growth, and we will have a surplus to report next year. Unlike the NDP and the Liberals, who are focused on a high tax plan, we want to keep the money in Canadian pockets.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, the Department of National Defence is now confirming publicly that the Conservatives' Canada First defence strategy for military procurement is in shambles. The departmental performance report tabled yesterday notes that little more than half of CFDS projects are on time. Wow. When we look at the joint and common support projects, none of them are on time, despite a target of 85%. Now, that's not performance. Can the Minister explain this abject failure to the House?
Hear, hear.
Our support for the military, Mr. Speaker, has been completely unprecedented. That being said, as the tabling of the documents with respect to the estimates show that an extra $900 million has been allocated to the military, and it increases our budget to over $19 billion. This is a great success story, Mr. Speaker, because we support the military in this party.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Saint-Constant. Mr. Speaker, after having confirmed the initial airstrikes in Iraq on Tuesday, Lieutenant General Jonathan Vance revealed that cost estimates for the mission had been given to the minister. Not only did the minister hide that fact that there was a cost estimate, but also he's refusing to share it. Canadians want to know how much of their money is being spent on this mission. When will the minister release the estimated cost for the military mission in Iraq?
There are incremental costs to an operation of this size, but there's one thing I know that we can all agree on, Mr. Speaker. Even fighting $1 fighting terrorism would be too much for the NDP. Now, you know, they love to talk about Canadian values. Well, guess what? Fighting oppression and terrorism is a Canadian value. They just don't get it.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Saint-Constant. What a lack of class and transparency, Mr. Speaker. Now, when we talked to the Minister of Veterans Affairs to ask him why he's taking so long in adopting the 14 recommendations on the new Veterans Charter, he vaguely says that he's working on it. Well, Mr. Speaker, the House was tabled in the House 6 months ago, and everyone agreed with the ideas to improve the Charter. Veterans and their families can no longer wait. So what is the minister waiting for to implement the recommendations put forth by the committee?
Mr. Speaker, our government has been perfectly clear that our government agrees with the spirit and the intent of the vast majority of the committee's recommendations. Our response was positive, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we implemented several recommendations right away. While we're getting down to work by removing the red tape identified by the committee, making things better for Canada's veterans, Mr. Speaker, we will continue working hard on behalf of Canada's veterans and their families, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, we learned from yesterday's Departmental Performance Report that the Minister of Veterans Affairs let $136 million in funding lapse last year. This is entirely due to the Minister's failure to act on behalf of our veterans. We also saw the poor response from the Minister to the all-party report on Veterans Affairs and the Veterans Charter. So, we ask again, when will these unanimous recommendations be fully implemented?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we are acting. We have a strong record when it comes to providing benefits and services for Canada's veterans. As a matter of fact, we have invested almost $30 billion since taking office, Mr. Speaker. That's $4.7 billion in additional fundings. What I would encourage the members opposite, Mr. Speaker, is to stop playing politics with Canada's veterans on a Remembrance Week, Mr. Speaker. If they truly care about Canada's veterans, they need to get board on with the government's initiatives to help Canada's veterans.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, last week Health Canada found 24 drug production facilities had so seriously violated safety regulations they were non-compliant with the law. Now, they knew this in 2013 and did not notify the public until now, a year after the U.S. Food and Drug Agency flagged the problem.
Really?
In 2011, the Auditor General warned the government they took too long to notify Canadians of drug safety risks. Why did they put Canadians at risk, and should we divest their role to the FDA?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, I expect Health Canada to take all drug safety issues very seriously, and we will not tolerate any drug safety risks. The member knows that when this information became available to Health Canada and they were able to see the technical reports and do their own analysis, we immediately moved to ban several companies that are situated in India, and we will continue to do exactly that when we get any information like this.
The Honourable Member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, the courts ordered the government to restore health care services to all asylum seekers. But the minister has just said that full coverage is being limited to children and pregnant women. What about women who aren't pregnant? What about seniors? Will the government fully comply with the complete court decision, or will it continue to show its contempt for the courts? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have complied with the court decision. We will continue to provide high-quality health care services to the refugees, but we will be appealing in order to take into account the values of Canadians. But I do want to congratulate my honourable colleague for Markham Unionville for having recognized that health care never stopped being provided to refugees. A few weeks ago, he said the opposite. This week, he is telling the truth.
Mr. Speaker, most Canadians live in cities. Canada connects to the world through our cities, but successive Liberal and Conservative governments have failed to understand that we have a national interest in the success of our cities. And the NDP government will be committed to playing our part to ensure that our cities are prosperous, fair, and sustainable, with thriving economies, with better access to transit, housing, and education. Mr. Speaker, when will the Conservatives wake up to the needs of our cities and the 80% of Canadians who live in them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government recognizes that modern and efficient public transit keeps our cities among the best in the world in which to live. That's why we are making record investments in infrastructure, as I explained earlier. We've also, Mr. Speaker, made record investments in public transit. Those projects include Waterloo Region Public Transit, Ottawa LRT, and new streetcars, Mr. Speaker, for the TTC in Toronto.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, Canadians living in urban areas are facing a critical shortage of affordable housing. The ever-increasing cost of home ownership is making it even less of a possibility to buy. The NDP put forth a housing strategy that would bring together the three pillars of government in order to ensure that affordable housing is available and affordable. After years of lack of action by the Liberals and Conservatives, will the government finally deal with the problem of housing in our urban communities?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is actually ahead of what the NDP are even suggesting because, Mr. Speaker, we've already signed investment in affordable housing agreements with the provinces across the country. And what those agreements do is it provides funding, Mr. Speaker, to the provinces. They then look at what their priorities are. We have some provinces that are using it to create new housing units. Some are using it for rent subsidies. Some are using it to increase seniors' housing. Because, Mr. Speaker, the provinces know what their needs are. We don't believe it should be Ottawa telling the provinces how to address their housing needs. We provide the funding, and together with our partners, we've actually helped over 1 million families and individuals with their housing needs. Thus, working together with the provinces and letting them do what they do best, which is recognizing their needs in their particular jurisdiction.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga South.
Mr. Speaker, as Canadians, we can be proud of the fact that we are a welcoming nation and home to many newcomers who seek safety, security, and protection. Although Canada is a generous and tolerant country, our openness does not extend to barbaric cultural practices that seek to harm women and girls. Can the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration please tell the House what our government is doing to end barbaric cultural practices from happening on Canadian soil?
The Honourable Minister for Citizenship and Immigration.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the hard-working member from Mississauga South for her work in this House and the support on this file. She and I are both proud to be part of a government that has tabled legislation that will protect immigrant women and girls from abuse, Mr. Speaker, from violence in the home, from polygamy, from even murder, Mr. Speaker, that masquerades for a misguided few under the name of honour. Mr. Speaker, we're going to stiffen penalties for those responsible for the outrages. And, Mr. Speaker, Canada will not tolerate barbaric practices such as early and forced marriage, female genital mutilation, or honour killings. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cape Breton-Canso.
Mr. Speaker, this government has said they would only help with the cleanup of the MV Minor should the hulking wreck on Scattery Island present a navigational or environmental threat. 2 years ago, the minister presented the province of Nova Scotia with a baseline assessment of 6.6 tons of asbestos and no fuel on board. The reality is they've already taken off 30 tons of asbestos and are aware of a significant amount of fuel still on board. This government has signed off on the towing permits and the towing approvals. Does the government now understand with this environmental threat, they have a responsibility to assist?
The Honourable Minister for Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The province of Nova Scotia is leading this operation. Immediately following the incident, Mr. Speaker, the Coast Guard acted decisively to protect the marine environment by removing the majority of the diesel and oily water from the vessel. Due to the position of the vessel at the time, some fuel was not accessible until deconstruction permitted access to confined spaces, so it was necessary to monitor the situation until the salvage was carried out. Mr. Speaker, the Coast Guard stands ready to assist the province of Nova Scotia.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Mr. Speaker, a proposal from Industry Canada has raised serious concerns throughout rural Canada. They discuss taking spectrum away from rural internet users and giving it to urban telecom companies. While the minister has claimed no one will lose internet services as a result of this process, his public comments don't jive with the proposal. So, Mr. Speaker, mayors are concerned, communities are concerned, and business owners are concerned. Can the minister assure Canadians that this won't end up as another example of this government leaving rural Canadians behind in the digital era?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to hear that that member is particularly concerned, and no less concerned than the Minister of Industry in this government, because let me be absolutely clear, under no circumstances will our government take spectrum licenses away from any local internet service provider that is providing internet service, rural service to rural Canadians. That's very, very clear, and I hope the member appreciates that.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, our government has consistently put the interest of Canadian consumers first, and we will continue to promote policies that lead to more choice, lower prices, and better services. Can the Minister of Canadian Heritage update the House on what our government is doing to support Canadian consumers?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Today's decision by the CRTC to get rid of the 30-day cancellation notice period to cancel cable is very welcome and consistent with our government's consumer-first agenda. The cancellation notice was an irritant to Canadians, and the CRTC heard them loud and clear. On January 23rd, Canadians who want to end their cable service will be able to do so without giving notice and without facing extra charges. Our government will continue our consumer-first agenda, and we will continue with programs like ending fees for paper bills in the telecom sector and delivering choice for consumers in television channels.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Like the NDP, the Business Foundation for the Hiring of Foreign Agricultural Workers has denounced the government's bungling of the foreign workers program. Conservative mismanagement has caused Quebec agricultural producers to lose $53 million. Farmers just want clear rules, and they want to know what those rules are ahead of time. Will the minister get this program in order and stop hurting agricultural producers in Quebec? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this government, of course, is a strong supporter of farmers all across this country. We've undertaken initiatives to support farmers in all that they do. And the Temporary Foreign Workers Program, Mr. Speaker, the farm community has access to particular programs under that Temporary Foreign Worker Program, and those particular programs have been exempt from the changes that this government has brought forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, we now know exactly where TransCanada wants to put its pipeline in Quebec. Dozens of communities along the river, including mine, and even a natural reserve are in the sites. Before the official tabling of legislation, we have the impression that a decision's been made and that the regions will have no say in the matter. When will the government finally understand that it's up to the regions and the people to determine these decisions and not just the pipeline company?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government welcomes in principle the prospect of shipping Western Canadian oil to Eastern Canada. The Independent National Energy Board is undertaking a thorough scientific review of this project. We will rely on the science and the facts when making decisions on these infrastructure projects. That is why we will wait for the open and transparent review process rather than jumping to conclusions.
Bravo,
Thank you.
That concludes the question period for today. The Thursday question, I believe, today follows the Honourable Member for Gaspésie et la Madeleine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it's a great honor for me today to ask the Thursday question to the Government House Leader concerning the schedule for the week of November 7th. I should note that yesterday we had great success. The House came together unanimously to support the bill by the member from Scarborough Southwest, a bill which honors our veterans. And I think that we should applaud all of the members of this House who supported that bill. And I hope that the House will continue to collaborate in this way. And that's why I would also like to ask the government leader in the House, well, there are still 2 more opposition days that have to be designated. The parliamentary session will draw to a close very quickly. Could he please specify